Welcome to Career Uprising. I'm your host, Lorraine, a career and executive coach dedicated to helping clients who are 40 plus to break free from feeling stuck and transform into the unstoppable force you're destined to become. Let's start the uprising. Hey everyone, welcome to Career Uprising. This is episode 184, The Job Seeker's Journey with Bradley Stair. I'm your host, Lorraine. Take a moment now to review the show and follow it on Apple. Make sure you never miss an episode. We're cranking them out more consistently than we ever have this year in 2025. And also check out the archive at careeruprising.com/podcast. We're up to, as I said, about 184 episodes. So there are lots of good information for you to dive into. So welcome to the show today. Today's guest, honestly, is very, very unique. I have a wonderful guest here today, Bradley Stair. And what is unique about him is that unlike a lot of the guests that I bring on, who are wonderful in their own right, Brad is not a guru, an author, a coach, an entrepreneur. He's just like you. He's a job seeker in the thick of it right now as we speak, going through the difficult, to say the least, difficult job market that we have. It's one, maybe actually the most challenging one actually that I have seen in my 10 years of coaching job seekers. I actually think that it might be. I think one of the best ones was right after the pandemic, that great resignation. Everyone was changing jobs. Now it's just a few years later, it is completely different. The pendulum just swings back and forth, and I am seeing a lot of people struggle and take 9 months to a year or more. Somebody I know just landed after 2 years of looking. It can be challenging. So let me tell you very briefly about Brad and his background, but I'm going to let him really tell his story. Brad received his bachelor's in marketing from Oklahoma State University. He also has a master's degree in entertainment business. He has 15 years of experience as a project manager across various industries. Much like a lot of our clients, actually, project management is a very, very common skill set for a lot of people that I work with. He's been through layoffs, 4 actually, over the last number of years. And so this has enabled him to empathize very deeply with other job seekers, as I do. And some of you may know that is a very similar story to mine. I was laid off 5 times in 7 years in my 20s. So I connected very quickly with Brad and his experiences, and I know what it's like. So it's kind of interesting that our paths have crossed here, but his experiences on the job market have also inspired him to start his own podcast, The Job Seeker's Journey. And so I want you guys to hear more about that today, but he's here today to offer support, insights, keep it real, tell you what he's going through and what he's learned. And so this is a love letter to anybody out there right now who is in the thick of it and is in a job search, because we know what you are going through and how hard it is. So we're happy to have him here today. Welcome to the show, Brad.
Thank you for reaching out to me. And as you mentioned, the job market is really crazy. And, anything that I can do to try to help my fellow man is something that just gets me up in the morning and makes me excited to start the day. So that's why we're here.
Awesome. Well, tell our listeners first, just briefly, a little bit more about your background, the kind of work that you've done, what's the kind of work that you are looking for, and just kind of how you got to the point you're at today.
Sure. Well, as you mentioned, I spent the majority of my career coming out of college as a project manager. I was fortunate in that I went through an orientation in my very first job at Baker Hughes, where we got to talk to all of the different department heads that was involved in Baker Hughes. And what that entailed was they would come in and tell us exactly what they would do and how they did it. And the moment that the director of project management came in and explained the job, I knew right away that fit who I was as a person, fit my personality, and just was exactly what I wanted to do. So I started to pursue that. I started out in oil and gas, got sent to California for oil and gas, came back to Oklahoma after a few years of that and got into manufacturing and did manufacturing for probably the first 10 years of my career in multiple industries. And, finally with wastewater. And I spent 5 years working at a company here in Oklahoma City doing wastewater treatment for industrial and municipal clients, food and beverage companies like Tyson and Sara Lee and those type of places. And then, of course, municipalities where you think of with wastewater. And the final 2 years of that, I was given an opportunity to be the director of marketing for that company. And I absolutely loved that time. I got to create all of their content that they still use today. And it was kind of a learn as you go situation of I learned how to shoot content. I learned how to write scripts. I learned how to edit. I learned how to act in it. I learned how to make brochures, all of the things that come in marketing. And that was just amazing. And then COVID hit. And we got through the majority of 2020. And then at the end of 2020, I got laid off from that and got into the IT world. I'd been trying to crack into the IT world and project management for a long time. Finally got my opportunity and got to work for a short time at higher education, and then moved into the consulting world and started doing IT consulting first for city and state governments, where I worked primarily with the city of Chicago and places like the Houston airport system and the Massachusetts state lottery and anything that is involved in city and state governments, which is a lot more than I ever thought it would be. And then finally did a little bit of oil and gas consulting where we advised small to mid-sized oil companies on data management practices and how to improve those to be able to scale as they wanted to grow as a company. So that's kind of how all that came about. But then in September of 2024, I was unexpectedly let go from that last company. I loved that company. I loved everything about it, loved the people, loved the culture, loved the clients, loved what we were doing. And it was a shock, to say the least, to be let go, especially how I was. And, fortunately or unfortunately, as you mentioned, I had been through this process a few times. So I was able to kind of take that step back, not freak out, and start, the search process. But as I started that process, I started looking on LinkedIn. And as you mentioned, the job market now is different than it's ever been. In a lot of ways, it seems harder than it's ever been. And I was seeing on LinkedIn people making posts of how difficult of a time they were having. You were seeing people that were out for 8 months, 12 months, 14 months. I think I saw a person that had been out 27 months and was getting desperate and was starting to lose faith in the system at all. And that started me thinking that maybe there was a way to try to help bring information to the people who are going through this process, bring free information to people that are going through this process. Because the other thing that you come across when you're going through a job search is there are people, especially in the resume writing world, but in other ways, that will take advantage of job candidates. You're constantly getting messages of your resume's not up to par. Give me $500, give me $1,000. I'll rewrite your resume and it'll now be high on the ATS system, only to get a message a week later from yet another one that says, that's completely wrong. Give me $500 and I'll rewrite your resume. And so I thought there's got to be a way to encourage people, show them that they're not failing, and and bring them information. So that's how the podcast kind of came about. I had a podcast in the past with some friends, and so I knew kind of how it worked, and I knew the mechanics of it and how to get it out there and all those things. So that's kind of how we're here today.
Yeah, a lot of things that you have said resonate. The job search is harder today, and it's for a lot of complex reasons, right? I mean, it's economic, it's cultural, there's just a global factors. Even there's just a lot going on, and there is a lot of genuine support and a lot of misinformation and things like that out there as well. It's really overwhelming, and it's just a really vulnerable, lonely, sometimes difficult place to be in. But I like that your mission is coming at it from a really positive and uplifting place. Like, yes, this is a hard process. We're not going to have toxic positivity about it, but at the same time, it's so important to not lean into the negativity, right? And just kind of throw your hands up and go, this is going to have to suck. So I love that you're coming at it from an empowering and a support system kind of angle. That's very, very important. So, let's talk about your journey and what are you experiencing? What are you seeing out there? What are the ways that you're seeing that it's really challenging? And then on the flip side, where are you seeing the wins and the bright spots in this process? Tell us a little bit about your specific job search of the last 9 months or so.
Yeah. So just like everybody else, the first thing that you do is you start reaching out to old colleagues or connections that you have that are still in places that you would like to work, or you start inquiring about what may be available. And I certainly did that and got some traction on that. I've been fortunate enough to be in the final round of interviews 4 times in this process, and for various reasons, it just hasn't worked out. And no shade on any of those companies. They all had their reasons and they're valid. And it was a disappointment, certainly, to get that far and not get the job. But the things that you're really seeing now that is a little bit disheartening, and I think is what makes people the most disheartened, is that there's a trend now of ghosting. Companies don't even take the time to reject you nowadays. And in a lot of ways, silence is the new rejection. And that's hard to deal with, especially as you get farther. If you're fortunate enough to start your interview rounds, especially as you get to the second and third round, you're hopeful. You want to work there. You've made your evaluation of that company and you're excited to potentially work there as well. So for them to not even really send a rejection letter, it can be confusing, it can be disheartening, and you're seeing that a lot. They're not even sending out rejection letters if you don't even get interviews. And I know that it can, and I have empathy for HR departments as well, because I know, especially in smaller companies, you probably have a very small HR team that's dealing with tons of applications. It's hard to keep track of it all. They're trying to do their best. But in a lot of ways, there's that trend that's happening a lot. Companies also are experiencing uncertainty, especially if you get into the manufacturing industry and industries that anything like the tariff thing that's going on right now, that's created uncertainty for these companies. So there's some of those that have slowed their hiring practices down, or maybe started hiring practices, but then because of that happening, they've stopped the process or whatever it may be. And unfortunately, sometimes that ghosting comes back with that too, because they don't always tell you why they're just suddenly stopping the process. So those are kind of the things that you come across. And then the other thing that's, I think, out there now is that there is a ton of qualified candidates on the market right now. There's been a lot of layoffs in a lot of big companies. And especially if you're in the IT world, there are tons of people that have recently been forced back on the job market. And so the competition right now is insane. And like if you were to look on LinkedIn right now, you could probably see a job that was posted at 8:00 this morning, and there's probably over 100 applications that's already been submitted. And so the competition is fierce. Thus, companies have the pick of the litter, and a lot of times can be looking for something so specific that they're extremely picky, and so you're going through all of those things. And I think that's what makes the job market so tough now is it's just highly competitive. Companies are acting a little bit different, and there's not a lot of support system for those that are going through it. And so that's kind of what I think I've seen this round.
Mm-hmm. It's, you said a phrase just now that really struck me. Silence is the new rejection. And I think you just hit the nail on the head with that one. Because if I have to say, if there's one thing that I hear the job seekers really talk the most about, it's the ghosting is one of the biggest things. And what that really is about, I think, is just the transactional nature of how we apply for jobs right now, which is, technology and automation and all of those things, definitely. But where I really want to focus on is where are you seeing some success? What have you found is a good strategy or a productive use of your time? Where are you getting traction, essentially? I think that's what I really want to focus everyone's attention on, because it's easy to get focused on all the things that are bad and not working. What has been working for you in your job search?
Yeah, so the most surprising thing I think that's come out of the podcast and all of the guests that have come on is that there really is a focus back on human interaction and presenting value to companies. And so what you're starting to see is it takes a little bit more homework on the candidate's part before they reach out to a potential connection or reach out to a potential hiring manager or anything like that. But what is really starting to take a forefront, somewhat by necessity, but also just because how muddy things like LinkedIn and applicant tracking systems and all those things are, is really defining what your value is and figuring out before you make that connection, doing your homework on that company, on that person, figuring out what are the pain points that they have, what are the holes that they may have, and then how do you fill that hole? How do you provide value for them? And having a conversation that's turned from what you may think you need to do of making a connection and trying to have them help you get that job. Because it's obvious if you have an open to work thing on your LinkedIn, you're obviously looking for a job. But if you can turn that conversation around to the person that you're talking to and what their needs are and how you may be able to fill their needs, those are what are starting to make traction. It's what you hear more and more from people of making it less transactional and more conversational and more value driven. That's what seems to be creating the most traction nowadays from what I'm gathering.
Yeah, I agree. So what I'm hearing you say is having a stronger, clearer value proposition as a candidate to differentiate yourself, and then doing deeper levels of research to make sure you really are a fit and that you do have a relevant message, and you solve a problem for that employer. I wholeheartedly agree with all of that. It used to be enough that you could throw out some applications or maybe send your resume to a few people and you had a job in 3 months, right? Those days are over. A couple other things have entered the room here. Personal branding is one of them. Job searching is very social now these days. It's even a lot of job search sites are almost turning into social media platforms. Those are all kind of integrating. So yeah, things have really evolved. And so if somebody doesn't feel comfortable with that personal branding kind of piece, it hurts the search a lot because that is a big piece of it. And I like your emphasis on company research as well, because that's not something that everybody really does. They're like, well, I just need a job. You can take that mindset, but that's going to be a long job search because you don't really even know what you're aligned with. And the fastest job search is to zero in on what you're aligned with. It's going to be better for you and better for them. So I think you're hitting on a lot of good points. So tell our listeners a little bit more about your podcast. Do you bring job seekers on to chat? What kind of things do you talk about? What kind of feedback have you gotten from listeners? And where can they go to listen to it as well?
Sure. So when I first started this, there was a couple things that I knew I needed to do. The first was, and to your point of what you were just speaking about a second ago, it would have been very easy for me to just make a podcast about my experience and just talk about what I'm going through at this particular time. But with all respect to myself, no one's going to really care that much about that. They may listen for a little bit, but then it's just some guy from Oklahoma talking about his struggle trying to find a next opportunity. So what I really try to focus on is I obsess over what are candidates going through? What are the challenges that they might be facing? And it can be on the technical side of, I've talked to guests about the applicant tracking system, because that's kind of a hazy mystery for a lot of people of what exactly is it? How does it work? How can I succeed in it? What was it designed to do? What was it not designed to do? Those kind of things. I've talked to recruiters who are working with candidates directly and them being willing to offer advice such as the value-driven conversations and things like that. I've talked to some hiring managers about what they've seen from the job market, things that they have, what stands out to them. I've ran through different scenarios of, if you have two candidates that have the same amount of experience, the same background, what is it about a candidate that stands out to you? And what would you be looking for in that scenario? And then we've ran through scenarios of, if you have two candidates, one that has on paper a lot more experience, one has a little bit less, what would make you potentially take a chance on that person that had less experience? What would stand out to you and make you want to give them a shot over the person that had more experience, and things like that. And then on the flip side, the other side that I thought was extremely important is taking care of your mental health and your physical health. And the reason why that was so important to me was it's real easy to isolate yourself when you get into this situation. You start to think, I'm the only one going through this. People are judging me at this point. You start isolating yourself. You don't really want to talk about your experiences. And some people will draw back. They'll not take care of themselves physically. But just in those situations, the thought is, if you take care of yourself mentally and physically, the idea is once you get into an interview, you want to be able to present your best self to that company. Because if you're coming in and you're down and you don't feel good about yourself and you're not confident and you're all those things, those all will translate to a poor interview, and you don't present yourself the way you hope to. And so the thought was, let's get to a point where you can walk into an interview, present yourself exactly how you hope to present yourself, and then let the results be what they may. But at least you don't walk away saying, gosh, I really wish I would have done this, or I wish I would have been able to answer this, but I froze, or I wish I had a different attitude, or any of those things. So those are the type of things that we talk about a lot on the podcast, and just trying to encourage people, show them that they're not alone, show them that they're not a failure, which is a big thing that you can feel when you've been let go from a company. Inevitably, whether they call it a layoff or whatever, you just got fired, and a company just said, we no longer need you, for whatever reason that may be. And that can be a blow to an ego, to your sense of self-worth, and all of those things. So the idea is just to really show people that there are people that care about your journey and are willing to stand beside you while you're going through this. As far as where people can find it, you can find it in all kinds of places. You can find it on Spotify. The Job Seeker's Journey is the name. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, anywhere where you can find audio podcasts. It's also on YouTube, and you can watch the video of it. And I also have a website called thejobseekersjourney.com that you can go to and find how to get to all those places. But it's just it's a labor of love for me. It's something that really does get me up in the morning. I get excited when I get to meet new people and learn things along the way. And I think part of the appeal is that I am going through it myself, and I am learning alongside of it. And the guests really are the highlight of the podcast, because I'm speaking to experts and people that are in it, and not just talking my way through it.
Mm-hmm. That's phenomenal. Thank you so much for the work that you do. And it's so important too, because you're not selling anything. You're just genuinely there to help support people, and you're going through it at the same time yourself. And I think people are going to find that so relatable. And that's one thing I really liked about you. And I wanted to bring you on, because that's kind of a different angle, right? There's no hidden agenda. It's just, hey, I'm going through this. Let's go through this together. I absolutely love that. So thank you for being here today. Thank you for the podcast. And I hope everyone does go to your website, thejobseekersjourney.com, and look for his podcast. And thank you so much, Brad, just for being here and for the work that you're doing. And of course, best of luck to you in your job search. Keep going through it, and I'll be thinking of you. And I just really appreciate the work that you're doing for everyone.
Yeah, well, thank you. It was an honor to be here, and thank you for reaching out to me. And we're hoping to get you on, and we have some phenomenal people coming on that I'm really excited
I'll be there
for people. It's something that I think is just good information for people, even if you have a job and you're kind of trying to look into things. It's just, that's the idea. It's just trying to create a community of people that are supporting each other through this difficult process.
All right. So everybody, please do connect with Brad, listen to his show, and go to his website. I think every layer of support that you can get in this process is really, really needed. So thank you for that. And we will be back in the next week with another show. And in the month of August, when this show airs, the topic that we're going to continue with is kind of managing your emotions and your mental health, getting through difficult times. We're going to the remaining shows this month are really actually going to follow along this theme and continue to help people who are kind of going through difficult transitions. So stay tuned for more shows, and you can find the archive at careeruprising.com/podcast. And we'll talk to you guys soon. it's Lorraine, and I want to say thanks for listening. If you found value in today's show, I would be honored to have your review on Apple Podcasts. It's the single best way to help this show be found by other listeners, and you'll earn some good karma. Thanks again for tuning in, and I can't wait to connect with you next time on Career Uprising.